I would like to thank Bússola Tech and Louis Kimate personally that bringing this demanding conference into life. I think it's the third time in a row, and we all hope that he will continue to dedicate himself to parliamentary science and deliberation of knowledge around representative institutions. I am Fotios Fitsilis. I am a researcher in the Hellenic Parliament in the Scientific Service. And today I'm going to moderate a very interesting discussion with excellent guests on the phasing out legacy systems and how to match old with new technologies. We had already a short presentation of our speakers from Mejlis of Azerbaijan, from the Oireachtas in Ireland, from NovaWorks in Australia, and from the Cámara de Diputados of Mexico. You will have shortly the chance to introduce yourselves, gentlemen. Let me set the stage and initiate our discussion by saying the following. Societies are in transition, and the reason why this is happening rapidly, among others, is also to be found in technology. And this rapid evolution of technological means and related processes, of course, does not leave unaffected legislatures or representative institutions in general. We're here today to discuss possible means or also procedures maybe for migration from established technologies to new ones, which they will be, how they would look like. I would like to leave it open to our speakers to debate. And without further ado, allow me to ask the first question. And this goes like this. How would our speakers perceive personally the current level of digitization in their own parliaments? So in each one of the parliaments we mentioned. And here, feel free, each one of you, to describe briefly the state of play. Are you happy how the digitalization process is proceeding within your parliament? And what do you see the potential? How do you see the potential for digitalization activities and digital transformation activities within your institution? And let's begin with Mr. Hasanov from Azerbaijan. Mr. Hasanov, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. To me, I'm very glad to see you again. Hello for everybody. But about the digitalization, about your stage, I will say every time we try to improve our system with technologies, but changes technologies rapidly. It makes maybe some effect for our speed, for our realization of a plan. But any case, but I am thinking like that. It's my opinion. Information main thing on the digitalization, try to do it to make the installation. It is not, I think it is not independent. It is not depends on the modern technologies, because I think say this situation I want to make compare. If you have glass of water, you can to do with everything and pour it, mix it, and move from another to another. And mainly if you have your information in digital area, it is in virtual, it's, I say, you collect all information with some logic. But that's why to move from old changes to new technologies, this logic, you can move it in new technologies. I think this will be easier than to do great something.
Thank you very much for this brief and concise response. Let's move on with Ireland. I'm not seeing Mr. Doyle there. Maybe Jude Wilson would like to intervene.
Hi, how's it going? Yeah. Hi, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity to contribute. So we believe there is very good awareness of our digital transformation and how it's underway and how it's going. And this is something we kind of, let's say, put effort into to communicate. Our managing board and commission are now further along on the digital transformation journey themselves, as well as the staffs across our Parliament, and the support perceived from the digital transformation activities is much higher. It's something we do spend a bit of time on. Obviously, at higher level, we're putting through plans, and we'll get into them later. But even also at a kind of an end user level, we're constantly communicating what's new, what's coming, and so people are clear of the roadmap. We operate in a 3-year budget cycle, and we're in the second of those 3-year cycles, with the bones of our third already signalled to management. So we're well able to point towards the transformation we've already completed, and also kind of clearly outline where we intend going over the next few years, from up to 2027 at the moment. With regards to our perceived potential, like what do people believe, where can we be? This varies across the spectrum of the individuals we deal with, from some believing the sky's the limit and we can do absolutely anything, to others believing we peaked at pen and paper and we should have stopped there. That said, our response to COVID and our swift shift to remote working has expanded kind of the potential for all. Even the kind of naysayers are kind of now seeing, the potential and the power of what can be done, and are starting to look for more. In general, though, I believe the stakeholders, their attitude would be, they know we have a lot to do, though they also know we've a lot done, and they're fairly well aware of what our roadmap is going to be going forward. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to Jonathan from NovaWorks in Australia. Jonathan might not belong to a particular parliament, but his solutions have supporting the digital transition in several parliaments. Would you please, Jonathan, share with us your broad feelings of how digitalization is proceeding in the parliaments of the world?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing to actually look at a more global level, if that makes sense, and the parliaments which we actually are working with. And we're finding that some are a lot more advanced in their thinking than others. And one of the issues sort of which we face around the digitization process is actually really about working with the institution itself. And when I say that, is in the understanding of the existing processes and what I call the legacy way of thinking in some respects, and also, but understanding that to make decisions around digitization or what should the priorities be, it can mean that there has to be a lot of people involved and a lot of stakeholders involved to even make one decision. So when you're starting on a project around digitization, if you have to involve obviously a significant amount of stakeholders, we always find that those types of projects will take a lot longer to deliver an outcome versus, say, quick wins. So when I say quick wins, that might be we might migrate our email services, or what I call like more sort of standardized sort of IT technology outside of the parliamentary process, if that makes sense. So we sort of find that there's sort of really two streams of digitization sort of that we're sort of seeing. One is around, you know, the sort of core fundamentals of email or document management and a whole range of other things like that. But then you've got the more intrinsic things, which is what we sort of tend to work on around, you know, notice papers or bills or legislation and those sort of digitization processes, which are, I think, intrinsically harder to digitize, but that's more, I think, in respect to the potentially the institution and also the management involvement. And it, you know, it all comes back down to, I think, you know, change management and how you then sort of present those sort of ideas to get the buy-in to actually then agree on priorities as well.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next we move to Jesus from Cámara de Diputados of Mexico. Buenos días, Jesus. Please share your introductory comments on digitalization processes.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días, muchas gracias por la invitación. Buscando precisar el tema de cómo nos encontramos en la Cámara, pienso yo que el COVID nos ayudó a ser un catalizador para que las tecnologías se utilicen en la Cámara de manera más eficiente y que nos ayuden a generar caminos o nuevos caminos de comunicación hacia la sociedad. Antes del COVID, la velocidad con la que se adaptaban las tecnologías era, la verdad, muy lenta. Nosotros ahorita todavía, de hecho, tenemos algunos componentes que tenemos que reemplazar, como por ejemplo la electrónica de las puertas que dan acceso al Pleno, las cuales actualmente tienen ya hasta 20 años de vida, ya ni siquiera soporte tecnológico tenemos. Entonces tuvimos que generar un plan de acción donde pudiéramos actualizar desde los sistemas de voz, todo lo que viene siendo los sistemas de identificación biométrica que nos permiten el acceso a la Cámara, el acceso a Pleno, e incluso el registro de llegadas. Y también pues el tema de la votación electrónica que se convirtió en un tema prioritario que tuvimos que sacar. ¿Hacia dónde va? ¿Hacia dónde vemos que vamos en el camino? Ya una vez que se tiene a la tecnología como parte de la vida diaria de la Cámara, consideramos que lo que viene está muy relacionado a cómo podemos hacer que la gente participe con el legislador en la toma de decisiones. Se están impulsando medidas en donde nosotros ponemos se le llama portal ciudadano, un nuevo portal que acabamos de liberar el año pasado, en donde lo que queremos es que ese portal sirva de comunicación de manera menos formal, más accesible hacia el ciudadano, la información que se está generando aquí en la Cámara Legislativa. Y también creemos que lo que seguirá sería hacer un portal de datos abiertos donde la gente pueda bajar la información de quiénes son los diputados, qué iniciativas están proponiendo y todo lo que de alguna manera se relaciona aquí con el trabajo legislativo. Adicionalmente, queremos establecer canales de comunicación en donde la sociedad pudiera estar en contacto con las diferentes comisiones que tenemos en las cámaras, que permita, pues a lo mejor opinar sobre temas que son de importancia para ellos, ¿no? Ese sería de alguna manera el futuro que creemos que se estaría implementando a través de las tecnologías de información y apoyando en el trabajo legislativo.
Thank you very much, Jesus. Now, this was the first cycle, let's say, the first introductory step towards finding out more how digital transformation works in your parliaments. Let us now go deeper into this rabbit hole and maybe clarify for our guests and our viewers some vital elements of this process. So I would like to start also with, again, with Shahin from Azerbaijan, and to tell us, and then one by one, all of you will take the floor again, about any digital strategy that you have established in your institution, or maybe a legal framework, or maybe an action plan that you have put in place to guide you through the process. Kindly, Shahin, take the floor to enlighten us how you have initiated this digital transformation and what your plan looks like.
Thank you. Maybe on the legislature second edition, I make about presentation about our strategy plan. And in this plan, we have tried to finish. I think digitization is a big process, which we cannot see end of the process, because every digitization helps people to see business process in from up the process, and that's why when we using our strategy in order to get finished, every time appears new wishes from MPs, from staff, from us, because we can see when we have something, when we see how we can improve it. For example, I don't remember. Is it possible I can share my my desktop?
I think it should be possible. Kindly try it out.
1 second. You see?
Yes, it is visible.
This is our minutes, which we have all meetings, which we have from 2006, all meetings what we have in the Parliament of the Milli Mejlis. This is all documentation. This is agenda, first of all. This is agenda. This is a component document of the law. Then here we can listen MPs, at the same time watch who was talk on this method, but individually. For everyone, I can put it and we can see it. But in any case, I think it is not very good version of our minutes, because I think it must be a little different. For example, some sport websites, when they show football match, they begin say match begin, score, who was score. I think the minutes we have wishes to make this presentation, this of the website in different way. For example, meetings begin. This is this time speaker, then MPs or something like that. He started voting at the same time, but at the same time we can here we cannot inform who wanted to speak, but then he changed his mind or something like that. That's why I am thinking having on this process every time the time dictate for us add new features to our system. And I will tell you, this video we added here from 2020. In despite here, I can watch video in different times, but on this time, I believe when we create this system, I will can show any speech individually, and at the same time all documents are related with that. I think I said before, digitalization process, it is not since that when it will be finished, we every time to try to add our system, new features, or something like that.
Thank you very much for this. Would you mind to stop sharing your screen so that we can move on? Thank you very much. Jude, kindly tell us how things in Ireland look like. Do you have an integrated strategy in the Parliament or some other guiding document that sets out your plans?
Yes, yeah, we have an internal digital transformation approach, which we published and presented within the Oireachtas around the end of 2018. The plan and direction is laid out in the approach. But as I mentioned previously, we have a 3-year budget cycle. So effectively, because of the 3-year budget cycle we operate under, we then have to resubmit a new version of the strategy approach with 3-year and 6-year views. But the framework is there, and our framework for our digital transformation is made up of 7 programs. So we have like digital parliament, informing the debate, informing the citizen, digital modernization, data integration and analytics, technology in the chamber, and corporate organizations. Apologies. There is then an individual program governance in place for each of these 7 streams. All work on each of the program is tracked at low level, steering meetings, reporting up to each individual program board, and all program boards in turn report up to our technology and digital transformation board, and then onto our management board and onto our commission. Over time, this has become well structured and well understood governance model. We do believe that the having this document and having this roadmap is very important for us to show that we have a plan, we have a vision, and sharing that with the complete organization so that we get full buy-in and people can kind of see where we're going and also can see what that takes to get there. We would never published our digital transformation strategy publicly on its own. But it is part of the Oireachtas' larger strategic plan, which so elements of it would get kind of be disclosed publicly through that medium. The only thing we would say is as well in that is kind of like obviously implementing this change it can be a challenge, and parliaments need to see these changes. You know, I mean, to believe we're not implementing change, like some would think, you know, we're not implementing change quick enough, and some too quick. So it is important, we believe, to have our digital transformation actually documented and planned out so that everybody kind of sees where it's going. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Now the same question to Jonathan looks a little bit different. Jonathan, since you are working with multiple parliaments around the world, do you usually work within a regulated framework, or do you usually implement, or sometimes you implement standalone solutions without any other, let's say, context? And if you do so, do you sometimes advise the parliaments towards a more regulated solution, a more strategic, let's say, solution?
Yeah, so there are a few parliaments which, you know, definitely have laid out a very firm digital strategy, which is great. And that's what we work towards. So whatever solution that we actually then look at implementing for or advising on for a parliament, you know, for example, the Australian Federal Parliament, you know, or Australian federal government as well, they've got a multi-year roadmap around making sure that citizens and making sure that digital transformation is actually occurring across the whole board, not just within Parliament, but across every single agency, you know, that is actually managed within the government framework. You know, so there is a lot of frameworks involved. You know, when we look at that, we steer towards accessibility. We steer towards a whole range of, you know, design principles, which really are sort of inherent in that. And what we've then been able to achieve is actually then create a bit of a templated solution to really assist with those sort of design decisions, and also whatever sort of barriers which actually would then come in place to actually do and actually then, you know, create the digital strategy get the stakeholder involvement, get the buy-in, and then from that point, have the understanding of what that could actually look like in a real term, as an example. So like a recent example of that would have been that we were approached by a specific parliament and said, we need a new petitioning system and broadcasting system. And so we were able to create the strategy, design the solution, deliver that to the public, within a 3-month period. So within 90 days, we had it from inception all the way through to delivery. By utilizing existing frameworks and existing standards, it can really accelerate, I think, that sort of digital transformation strategy of a parliament as well. Not reinventing the wheel, not trying to recreate everything, I think is a fundamental thing, which I think most parliaments should be thinking about. And this is obviously why we're here today, to share our knowledge, to share our experiences, so people don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you, Jonathan. And now the floor goes to Jesus from Mexico. How does this look like in Mexico, Jesus?
Gracias. Nosotros estamos trabajando dentro de el modelo de evaluación de desempeño que en la Cámara se viene implementando de manera integral en todas las áreas que pertenecemos a la Secretaría de Administración y Finanzas, en donde nos estamos estableciendo metas anuales y que estos a su vez se programan a través de una estrategia digital en donde se plantean algunos objetivos, de tal forma que todo el presupuesto que se esté generando de alguna manera se busca alinear a las líneas de acción que determinamos dentro de esa estrategia. En lo particular, para estos 3 años, ahorita estamos acabamos de terminar el primer año, ya estamos iniciando el segundo. Las líneas de acción que se determinaron están muy enfocadas en temas como el reforzamiento de la seguridad informática. Ese es un tema que toma mucha relevancia ya ahora que tenemos pues mucha comunicación a través de las tecnologías digitales. La otra línea de acción que se determinó pues, fue la actualización de la tecnología que teníamos ya sin soporte en la Cámara. Otra línea de acción que se está tomando en cuenta es el favorecer las tecnologías open source, que se trabaje buscando trasladar todas las tecnologías que pudieran ser susceptibles de migrar a tecnologías open source. La otra es fortalecer el tema de redes. Las comunicaciones ahora pues, hacen más demanda de lo que viene a ser el uso del ancho de banda que tenemos, y hemos fortalecido en ese sentido la red, y queremos también seguir fortaleciéndola internamente aquí dentro de la Cámara. Y digamos, como línea de acción también tenemos marcado la independencia tecnológica. Teníamos algunos productos en donde dependíamos de un solo proveedor, y hemos tratado de quitar esa situación, teniendo la posibilidad de, a través de los productos que se tengan, no tener una dependencia exclusiva de un solo proveedor, para tener mayor flexibilidad en la toma de decisiones, ¿no? Esas serían en grandes rasgos nuestras acciones o líneas de acción, como le llamamos nosotros, para poder trabajar, y nuestra toma de decisiones va basada en esos principios que estamos hablando.
Thank you very much. And by that, we have completed also the second question. Let's move on to the third round of our debate. And this one is more directed towards the organizational issues, the expertise that is necessary to initiate change, digital change in Parliament. So the question is about how your organizations cope internally with the increasing complexity that technology brings? And what are the challenges there? Do you solve these problems internally? Do you have a strong IT department? Do you consider strengthening it further, or do you rely to external assistance in order to facilitate this change? Currently reflect on these issues shortly, and give again the floor to Azerbaijan to highlight how these issues are solved in the parliament. Shahin, kindly put on your microphone, please. You're still muted.
Problem. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I make one presentation several years ago about the strategic plan, how to improve. Azerbaijan Parliament has strong IT team. And when we create our strategy plan, it was about 2008 to plan to begin start digitalization process. This strategy process every time continuous process. Every time we prepare and plan, create a model, assessment ICT staff, infrastructure, and something like that, and then we to plan to realize it. I say in my experience, I had a lot of situation when company outside of the parliament, for them it's very difficult to understand business processes because parliament specific place, specific business processes. For example, when we create our management conference system, when I explain for the company who will be make this software, for him it will very difficult, very hard to understand this process because they don't try to spend much time to learn all these processes. I work in parliament more than 20 years. That's why I and my team to understood all the processes, and they can create better solutions than from the outside. But in any case, we in parliament, in my team, we try to do ourselves all these processes because we ourselves begin these processes. Who comes outside, for him will be very different to understand this process itself. That's why I am thinking it will be very best when we every parliament has own strong team. At the same time, I think parliaments have to, or parliament or something, maybe IPU, create special platform where parliament can share our softwares. For example, in 2014, in the parliament IPU seminar, I'm sorry. In IPU seminar, I make some suggestion. For example, now in our site of the Milli Mejlis site, there is special. I make special site where I give our softwares for free using for other parliament. I think every parliament creates or solve some problems, create some softwares, but parliament teams understood each other better than outside. But I think sharing with knowledge, with experience with other parliaments, it gives more or much opportunity to everybody, for us, for everybody. Then it's my opinion that it is better have strong team.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A very interesting approach. Yes, let's move on to Jude. Jude, how do you solve this complexity issue in the Oireachtas, and are you relying primarily on your internal team, or do you use external assistance or networks?
We have a mix of both, right? And we kind of find it works quite well. We've been engaged in our current digital transformation over the last 6 years. And when we started, we had 4 internal staff and some contractors. Then in 2016, the Parliament-wide Enterprise Architecture Project, we've kind of been maturing ever since. The number of both external staff has fluctuated since, and even internal staff has kind of been growing as well. And we've kind of built a structure where we would have kind of like, obviously the most senior, and then the next layer of senior people are internal, and they would be people of excellent knowledge of the actual organization and the business of the houses of the Oireachtas, but also with a quite high knowledge on the IT as well, and the infrastructures, and the kind of the wider picture. But we find when it comes to specific technologies, where you need an expert who's kind of dedicated to that field, like if you're implementing one solution, it's best to have somebody dedicated to that. And we find they're usually, that type of resource is best sourced from external providers. So we work with a couple of different companies who provide us with these resources. And then instead of taking them in as like a company to provide a resource, we have a company to provide us with individual expertise, and we then manage them as part of the team throughout our normal infrastructure and org chart, as if they were staff or employees of the houses of the Oireachtas. Our department is growing, and it's growing in strength, it's growing in expertise, and also in value as we deliver more and more projects. I would kind of mimic the previous comment to say that we also believe collaboration with other organizations doing the same thing around the world is key. It's amazing what we can share with each other and help with each other, and how we benefit from it. It's very good. I suppose that one of the bigger challenges we find is in around the retention of that expertise. And in different areas, if you build a resource up and then they end up, going somewhere else, that's key. So I think we rely on our mix of kind of, sharing where possible the knowledge, or bringing in individual, very specific expertise from an external source.
Also a very interesting approach. I would love to hear more sometime. Let's move on now to Jonathan, who's an external contractor to Parliament. So, Jonathan, here your views and maybe experience is very important. How do you usually work, as part of an internal team, or are you given special competencies to get into parliaments and do your stuff?
Yeah, so we tend to work as a sort of external consultant, and an external sort of solution provider as well. So we have our own staff, and we've had staff, which have been working with parliaments and multiple different parliaments, say, for over 20+ years. So, the terminology and the business process and the training, and one of the sort of unique sort of things, which I think we also do find, is that we can actually help and like through these sort of programs with Bússola Tech and also other sort of mechanisms as well, is that we help join those dots for parliaments. So for example, we had it's a petition solution which was needed to be done for a particular parliament, but we'd already done that for another parliament as an example. So we were able to bring in that knowledge, but also connect the two parliaments together and say, well, this is actually, have a chat to this team over here in this parliament, outside of us, if that makes sense, and say, what were your experiences and what were your sort of thoughts around how this actually was to operate. So we sort of see ourselves as sort of a bit of a broker between parliaments who are doing different things at different stages, and they all have different priorities as well. So for us, it's actually, we spend a lot of time listening to the parliament and then coordinating and saying, oh, we actually know of a parliament over here who's done something similar. Let's hook up a conversation, and then we can help with, say, enterprise architecture, or helping with sort of solution design as an example. We're currently working with a parliament at the moment where they're engaged with an external vendor to help with their new public website, and so they've brought us in to help with enterprise architecture and solution design, and making sure that it fits within the parliamentary framework as an example. So like, we're not actually building that website as an example. So but it's actually about the facilitation of the knowledge and around how we sort of view open data, open source, like what are those sort of emerging trends, by talking to everyone here today with different parliaments, what is everyone else focusing on? So we can then feed that back into the other parliaments, which we're actually working with as well. So a lot more around facilitation and design and architecture. And also I think cloud migration is, a very hot topic as well. So, I think that the IT staff internally, they're usually quite strong, is what we do find. And so what we try to do is actually work with the IT team and then potentially train them up with some of the more emerging technologies as well. So, and again, I think that sort of comes back into, and I think we've talked about this sort of previously as well, around staff retention, because there is so much knowledge within Parliament itself that you want to keep your existing staff happy, and you want to keep them trained, and you want to keep them always sort of thinking about that next thing as well. So, it's about how do you create that excitement to keep your existing staff in place.
Thank you very much for these insights to your work. Jesus, what about the Parliament of Mexico? Kindly share your thoughts.
Claro que sí. Muchas gracias. Nosotros en México estamos siguiendo un modelo muy parecido al que plantea Jude. Nosotros tenemos gente que está trabajando internamente y pues también contamos con proveedores que nos auxilian en la implementación de los cambios que se tengan que realizar. El equipo interno de Cámara se enfoca en la toma de decisiones, digamos, de lo que consideramos que se debe de tener agilidad de solución, y utilizamos a los proveedores para trabajar en las líneas de los cambios que son de mucha más envergadura en los proyectos que estamos realizando. Entonces, pues se planteó este esquema tratando de fortalecernos con las mejores soluciones que nos puedan ofrecer la tecnología que podría ser a través de proveedores, y también estamos buscando capacitar a la gente interna para que nos ayuden en la resolución de los temas del día a día que se están presentando. Esa es más o menos una estrategia que hemos venido trabajando para pues, enfrentar los cambios que se vengan en materia, ¿no?, de TISEC. No te escuchamos.
Excuse me for that. Thank you, Jesus, for these very interesting comments, how things, how you internally operate in the Parliament of Mexico. Now, we're well past halftime in our debate. We have 2 more rounds to go. And the next round is about the core topic of this of the current debate. It is about old tech, old technology, and migration to new tech. Obviously, this presents several parliaments before a lot of problems, legacy issues or difficulties in operating the new tools and services. I would like you, and starting from Azerbaijan again, I would like you to share your best practice. How do you tackle such issues, legacy issues in your parliament? How, if you implement, if you have anything particular interesting to share from your daily practice, and how your activities, your daily activities look like, your daily routine when you are trying to address those challenges. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. It is very difficult to say our routine works, but I think about the new technologies, we try to grade our system more independent from the, for example, other softwares or something like that. For example, I say yesterday I talked about the legislation information management system where we keep our information in Word format. But on that case, I think we make a mistake, or because on that time, my team understood XML is a good format for the future. But unfortunately, we don't have opportunity or internal or external to create special editor, which we plan to apply to our system. But recently, maybe during COVID time, we try to make special editors. I think it will be open based on open system. But it will look like that. You see, we cannot use any word system. This is title of the law. This is articles 1, 2, or something like that. If I want to add here, 1 second. If I want to add here new article, I can write here, and it will be to grade or something. But unfortunately, we didn't finish this project. But main idea was that we try to create some software or something like that in order be independent. My idea, I think, if we will be finished this software, we cannot use it only legislation. We cannot create any templates of any documentation, and which will be allowed to keep our documentation on XML or JSON now. But I think to speak about routine days, it is very wide. But I think if we will be finished this project, it will be a very good project. Yeah, I think we can, if we will be create ourselves with my team, when we finish, we can share it with other parliament too, if we will be to our teams. Or not, in that case, we will be see how we can manage with the system.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very interesting. And of course, the international parliamentary community looks forward to such open solutions evaluate and also to try to adapt some parts of it if it is possible. Yeah, let's move on to Jude Wilson. How these things in the Oireachtas look like, Jude?
Yeah, it's a tricky area with the legacy systems. I think we're all kind of aware of that. And I think we're all aware of our legacy systems, that there's an urgency in some of them to move them, depending on the technologies they're built on and how they can become. And we're kind of in the middle of that process where we kind of like have replaced a lot of our systems, and we still have more to come. And obviously there's the resourcing and timing in doing that. How we approach replacing our legacy systems kind of depends on the nature of the project itself, in that if it's a fairly standalone legacy system, or as minor integrations, or it has the potential for to be purchased as software as a service and we can buy it off the shelf, where possible we would do that. You know, we kind of see that gives the product a better longevity, and if we can do it that way. If the system we're replacing is something that was built specifically for us, for our organization, and we kind of feel the best move is to replace it with another bespoke solution and something that might then integrate better, it becomes obviously a bigger thing, and we have to manage it as a full-blown project. They are tricky. What we've found is to have, obviously, to increase our processes. We're kind of maturing our processes, and we've recently added the addition of producing our project architecture documents in the beginning of each of these moves to assess what the solution is and assess how it fits with what we've already moved and how it reconnects with any older systems. And in that kind of documenting them moving forward, it allows us to kind of assess how it's fitting in with our digital transformation, and it aligns itself with that. But also then, you know, that when we move something, we don't break it, and there's still a technology there to maintain any integration back to other systems in our technology stack. So
I do take this with me, that you don't have to break things, but try to achieve a seamless transition from old to new systems. That would be the ideal situation. Thank you very much. Now to Jonathan, who might have a case study or two to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting when we look at, like, say, the old technology, and also just, I think, what some parliaments, their thought processes actually are when they look at old technology, and looking at their business processes, and then looking at new technology. And a lot of the time, we sort of always start with the conversation, well, we have to do everything, you know, everything has to be done at once, and in like a big bang, like, we're going to do the whole lot at a singular time. And, you know, the conversation, then we sort of draw back and say, well, you know, let's actually look at what you have and then work out, is there something which we can actually, you know, we could just look at your member data or your legislative data or your bills or your, you know, there's ways which we can look at modularizing or looking at your silos of data and saying, why don't we just target this particular type of data first to modernize, as an example. So, you know, one of the things I think when we look at this, we say, and what we also tend to focus on is working and running things in parallel. So you will never ever, you know, from the outset, you will never fully, you know, retire an old system until you've done everything. So, you know, if you look at that, you have to sort of be pragmatic about how you then approach that sort of old to new technology as well. So, like case examples which we have is that we currently host, say, like a live event streaming and broadcasting system, or we actually host for one of the parliaments all of the transcriptions and all the search functionality on the public websites as well. but they actually have other systems which deal with their bills. So there are cases where we can compartmentalize and extract what we need, to develop new functionality and new services as well. But with still respecting that there are still legacy systems in place, which are again going to take a lot more design or a lot more effort to potentially, get rid of those sort of systems as well. And I know that we talked with one of the parliaments, and a lot of parliaments in Australia use Lotus Notes as an example. So a technology called Lotus Notes, which has been around for an extremely long time. And we started a transformation process with some of those parliaments, and so say 6 years on, some components still are in Lotus Notes. They're not fully transformed into the new platform or the new environment, just because there are other priorities. And one of the other key sort of things I'd like to sort of quickly talk about is, when you actually look at sort of migrating from old technology to new technology within the parliamentary framework, is that a lot of times, sometimes that when you actually need to make decisions, you are talking with people, who are not technical, or, that it's not their day job. What I call their day job, or their actual job is not to do digital transformation. So, it's really important to work with them when you look at their old technology, which is working for them, and then what that actually would be like, in the newer sort of form.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for these very interesting remarks. And before going further to Jesus to outline such issues in the Parliament of Mexico, I would like to say that this is a very baseline discussion of the issues that we are putting here on the table. Should anybody from our audience would like more information, we do encourage to get directly in contact with our speakers. So, because these issues go in very big depths, and without specific and very detailed discussions, representatives from parliaments will likely not be able to really understand the proper approach and what it takes to get these systems in place. Jesus, sorry for this delay. You have the floor.
Muchas gracias. Pues la verdad es que nosotros estamos enfrentando, de hecho, todavía el reto de transformar varias situaciones. Se nos venció, por ejemplo, llegó a su ciclo de vida el GRP con el que estábamos trabajando. Tomamos la decisión de buscar una alternativa diferente, tratando de que fuera más ad hoc a lo que hacemos en la Cámara de Diputados. Sin embargo, yo creo que el reto principal que hemos manejado es la modernización de lo que viene siendo el pleno de sesiones de la Cámara de Diputados, donde teníamos tecnologías que estaban trabajando, que funcionaban, pero que habían llegado a su ciclo de fin de vida. Tan solo el tema de las puertas tenían 20 años de vida, y pues la verdad es que ya había una dependencia tecnológica muy alta con los proveedores, porque en realidad dependíamos de que ellos pudieran conocer la solución cada vez que existía un problema, y pues nos enfrentamos a la modernización de este tipo de temas. Lo que hicimos pues fue dividir el pleno en varias áreas, y fuimos modernizando año con año cada una de las áreas que se van trabajando. La primera que se atacó fue derivado del COVID. Se hizo una votación electrónica, y después cambiamos el sistema de votación que teníamos en ese momento para que pudiera adaptarse al sistema de votación electrónica que que se había desarrollado para que pudiéramos trabajar en el mismo entorno. Se dio cambio también a todo el tema de pantallas. Teníamos pantallas matriciales que no nos permitían ver incluso videos, por ejemplo, los videos eran de muy mala calidad en el pleno. Se modernizó ya para tener, de hecho, 8K dentro de las pantallas que contamos hoy en día en el pleno. Se modernizó también el sistema de audio para que pudiera también integrarse con el sistema de votación que actualmente se tiene y contar con un sistema de audio pues, digital en lugar de analógico que nos permita tener mayor funcionalidades que nos permiten pues, hoy en día interactuar de diferentes maneras. El cambio final que estamos buscando hacer ya para el próximo año sería el de la biometría, que ya trabaje con tecnología pues más moderna, porque ahorita, como les comento, tiene ya 20 años y la verdad es que no sé cómo le hemos hecho para que no tengamos problemas tan serios, pero pues la estrategia ha sido algo similar a lo que mencionó Jonathan, ¿no? Dividir en pequeñas partes e ir moviendo cada una de esas partes para que se pudiera tener una solución que no causara problemas en la aceptación por parte de los diputados, que son los que al final de cuentas utilizan estas herramientas en el día a día. Y pues hay que tomar en cuenta, sobre todo cuando se hizo el cambio del sistema de votación interna, pues la capacitación hacia los diputados que permitiera hacerlo con mayor fluidez, además de integrar equipos de trabajo que están ayudando durante las sesiones para que se haga más fácil el que ante alguna duda de los diputados pudiéramos nosotros estarles apoyando y hacer que la aceptación de la tecnología no tuviera tantos inconvenientes. En general, pues esa sería una experiencia y pues la metodología en general que seguimos pues es muy parecida a lo que menciona Jonathan, ¿no? De dividir y ejecutar en partes los cambios que podamos ir realizando.
Thank you very much. Very interesting approach as well, and the outline was very concise and very interesting to further study. From my point of view as a parliamentary researcher, I would like to ask all of you to further deliberate your experiences, maybe write an article about this, maybe cooperate to present your case studies in larger fora such as scientific conferences, so that people in the parliamentary community can have more out of this. Now let's move on to the final round of our discussion, and this is all about data. We all know that data is one of the fundamentals of digital transformation. After all, everything is about data in different forms. Now, when dealing with data, there are several dimensions, and for our audience, allow me to list a few. We're talking about data production, about data migration, formats and standards, about openness. Several of our speakers have talked about that already. We're talking about that data quality and validation, protection, and so on. Now, starting from Shahin, from Azerbaijan, I would like to ask you and the speakers after you about any data strategy in your organizations. Do you have any specific plans for your data? And in general, any good practices that you would like to share with the parliamentary community? Shahin, you have the floor.
Thank you. But I want to make one note about the before round. We changed our electronic voting system in 2006, 16 years ago. We use on the system two softwares, which one created, developed by Bosch, another we created my team. But in despite that, we're using this system. Bosch system use only Windows XP. As you know, Windows rejected support Windows XP. But our software still works on Windows 7, Windows 10, but we didn't test it on Windows 11, not yet. But in any case, because we developed our software ourselves, it allows us don't change electronic voting system. You know, it is very much price or something like that. About this topic, I forgot the question. Please repeat it.
Yes, of course. It is about data as such. Do you have data, a plan for your data?
To be honest, we didn't have any strategy about the data. I don't have such strategy in written form. But I am thinking to create such strategy or plan. I don't know how to say about strategy about the data, because data is very important thing in our in every systems, but unfortunately we didn't have yet.
Thank you very much. Again, not many have a data plan or a data strategy, and of course this could be a sub dimension of your general digital transformation strategy, or it could be a separate strategy. This is up to you to decide. In any case, my personal feeling is that such strategies will tend to be very important in the future. They already are. Thank you, Shahin. Jude, what about your approach in the Oireachtas?
Yeah, I would agree. We don't have a formal integrated data strategy yet, though a number of us can picture what that is going to be. At the moment, we lack what we believe is a dedicated resource that's going to execute this and look at this across the full digital transformation program streams for us. But it's something we've kind of already identified and are actually resourced and hope to have that individual on board, and with the kind of the power and the oversight across all of the systems so that it's looking at the data as a whole. We have at the moment, we have people managing data on an ongoing basis, but not future orientated basis. There are good national guidelines on data strategy published, which we have reviewed and we hope to use, such as our cybersecurity baseline standards. And we believe that will help us draw up and deliver our own data strategy for our digital transformation. We have collaborated well with small pockets of other government departments and agencies as stakeholders regarding our data and their data, and integrating theirs with ours and ours with theirs. And examples of like our Irish statute book, our documents laids, Taoiseach's office and stuff like that. The Oireachtas also has a number of open data strategies, which has 9 elements of open data available through an API. This data set at the moment remains fairly static for about the last 3 to 4 years, and we now believe it needs further progression. And part of that process would be to establish our full-time resource to actually be our chief digital officer post to create this strategy, and then managing it going forward across the organization. So yeah, we're not there, but I think like you said, it's a very important area, and it's we've identified that we're resourcing to actually start building that formally now. Yeah.
Thank you, Jude. I think what you mentioned about cooperation and following existing guidelines is very important. I don't think that one has to reinvent the wheel. There might be, government strategies, or I don't know, maybe from civil society, depending on the context and on the country. I think that people have to collaborate in Parliament with other stakeholders, maybe to develop such plans. Thank you. And with that, let's move on to Jonathan. What are your views, Jonathan, on the data topic and on creating dedicated data strategies for Parliament?
Yeah, definitely. I think most of the parliaments that we've worked with don't necessarily have a formal, like, open data set policy. That they want to publish their data, but their view might be that, well, it's actually available on our website in our format. So in other words, not a traditional data set like a XML or a API or a JSON format, etc. But they're presenting their data. So the shift is really about how do you move away from a nice looking web page to something which is actually for researchers, for academics, for legal profession, for a whole range of other industries. That data becomes really valuable, for them to actually look at and do whatever they need to with that as well. So, my view is, moving away from like the traditional PDF view and publishing a PDF and making it very much like machine readable, if that makes sense. So, and one of the benefits one of the things we've really worked on in the last 3 to 5 years is that we've now created a common data model across the majority of the parliamentary functions. So when you actually look at, for example, most of the parliaments in Australia now follow that common data model. So when we're then dealing with different industries and different sort of citizens, etc., we can point them to our documentation and say, if you want to talk to these 7 parliaments, it's all the same. So having sort of like a common data set to actually then help the end individuals, because if you're a state parliament or a local parliament versus a federal and a larger enterprise as well, you can make it very hard for citizens to try to work out, whether something is at a federal level or a state level, and they have to develop so many different algorithms if there are different classifications and different data sets, across the same country.
Thank you, Jonathan. And we come to Jesus in Mexico. Kindly share your views, Jesus, on data and any strategy that might be necessary for Parliament.
Sí, gracias. También me uno a mis colegas en términos de una estrategia formal para datos, no la existe. La hemos alineado más bien en el principio de hacer que la gente tenga disponibilidad de acceso a la generación de información que se crea aquí en Cámara. Y pues estamos queriendo ir hacia el concepto de tener datos abiertos que menciona Jonathan. Nada más que para lograr llegar allá, pues tuvimos que hacer varios cambios en el concepto desde el portal web que actualmente tenemos. El portal web se cambió el año pasado, de tal manera que ahora la información ya no solamente es HTML, sino que es un repositorio donde la gente sube los documentos y sube la información que estamos trabajando. Esto, por ejemplo, ahora tenemos pues bases de datos donde subimos toda la información de los diputados, donde subimos las iniciativas, las votaciones y todos los resultados que se van acumulando, de tal forma que eso nos permite a nosotros ahora presentar la información en la página web. Antes era HTML el que solamente existía, ahorita ya se genera el HTML de manera analizando los datos que tenemos para presentarle la información. Entonces, eso nos da la posibilidad ahora de pensar ya en ir hacia datos abiertos. ¿Eso qué significa? Que el paso que sigue o que queremos dar esperamos que a finales de este año tenerlo o para el siguiente, liberar una versión que nos permita la información que ahora tenemos, que generamos en la página web, hacerla disponible para que las personas puedan descargar archivos consideramos nosotros que tipo Excel o JSON serían los dos formatos útiles. Y también una API que de tal manera que cualquier programa pudiera interactuar con esta información y pudiera estar preguntándole a la base de datos información de lo que estamos trabajando. Entonces, el reto ha sido primero hacer que la información se encuentre sistematizada en base de datos y ahora empezar a publicar. Otro tema que estamos tratando de hacer más, que esté más al alcance de la gente, es todas las participaciones de los diputados en las sesiones que se tienen en el Pleno. Le llamamos nosotros videoteca. Nosotros tenemos la posibilidad de estar subiendo todas las sesiones también a YouTube, y lo que hemos hecho es crear un clasificador que nos permita dividir cada una de las participaciones de los diputados y clasificarlas. Y ese buscador nos permite a nosotros, pues por ejemplo, si quiero saber quién participó en la votación de un tema en particular, podemos entrar al buscador y decir, quiero que me toquen este tema, y entonces todos los participantes que hablaron sobre el tema los pueden enfocar. Podemos decir quiénes hablaron a favor del tema, quiénes hablaron en contra del tema, y eso facilita, pues creemos que la gente pueda localizar la información sobre las participaciones de los diputados en los diferentes temas que se van presentando. Entonces, el objetivo pues, es hacerles llegar la información de la manera más sencilla posible, y que pues cualquier tema que esté generándose en la Cámara lo pudieran ellos localizar. El reto es hacerlo fácil para que la gente lo pueda explotar. Actualmente tenemos mucha información disponible a través de PDFs, a través de las mismas páginas, pero pues la verdad es que solamente los que son expertos en el manejo de la información lo pueden hacer, ¿no? Entonces el reto es entrar a un esquema en donde sea más accesible para procesar esta información por cualquiera, y que también sea relativamente sencillo localizar esa información. Ese serían, digamos, nuestro camino. No tenemos una estrategia formal, pero sí, digamos, estamos trabajando en esas líneas de trabajo.
Well, this looks like a strategy to me, only it's not formal. You have already outlined several points of such a strategy. I think this is a sound plan and you can start formalizing it at some point. And by Jesus's points, we came to the end of our today's discussion. I'd like to thank all our speakers for sharing with us their thoughts, their problems, and maybe their plans for the future. And let's end this very interesting debate on legacy systems by giving the floor once again to each one of you, starting from Shahin, to say some closing words to our audience. Shahin, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think such seminar, first, such everybody helps for everyone. It is very useful for everyone. It helps us to learn and at the same time share our experience and learn from experience each other. Thank you to you. Thank Luis. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Shahin. Jude, you have the floor.
Thank you. And yes, again, thank you for today. I suppose our key takeaway is communicate, have a plan, and communicate it internally and communicate with each other. Yeah, thank you.
You are welcome, Jonathan. Your turn.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's very insightful knowledge, and understanding where everyone's pain points are is really, I think, interesting to listen to, and to get other people's experiences in this sort of field as well. My only sort of closing remark would be, when we'll look at old systems and moving it to new systems, is compartmentalize it, and again, have a big vision and have your vision out there, and make sure that we're always sort of heading towards that vision as well. But you know, you don't necessarily have to do a big bang approach. You know, you can carve off a piece over here and a piece over here and a piece over here to transition that to a new and emerging technology. So, you know, as long as it aligns with your business vision and, you know, where you actually want to go in your strategy, then you can carve off little pieces still to add to that as well.
Thank you. And last but not least, Jesus, you have the floor.
Pues primero agradecer la invitación a participar en este foro. Es muy interesante escuchar a todos los colegas que participan y a los expertos también. Eso nos da, pues ahora sí que ideas también para poder tratar de implementarlas en nuestro Parlamento. Y al final de cuentas, pues es un lugar en donde las mejores ideas pueden irse compartiendo y haciendo que se implementen en los diferentes parlamentos en los que participamos, ¿no? Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you very much, Jesus. Thanks, everyone. Also, our participants who followed us in this very interesting debate.